It's a Dungeons & Dragons podcast that'll really make you think. We're spicing up the rules, mashing up the homebrews, and stirring up the debates. Add a little touch of our own, and you have Chef Bolgg and the Pirate Captain's recipes for everything. With your host, the Pirate Captain.
It's not because I took on an entire ship by myself and walked away unscathed just off good looks alone.
Chef Bolgg.
I have in my rules for the original AG. Don't be a dick.
And Loke the Bard.
Lock the Bard bans all bards from his campaign. That wouldn't go over very well.
And without further ado, here are your hosts.
Well, that is right. We're back at it again with another grand adventure. I am the Pirate Captain with me bestest buddies. Say hello, buddies. Hello, Bolgg.
Hi.
And hello, Loke the Bard.
Yellow.
That's
Hello.
right. We're back.
We appreciate you guys always tuning in with us.
Why yellow?
Because that's what goblins are.
Uh-oh.
Are you a goblin now?
Yeah.
Is that what it's going to be?
No,
Oh.
just yellow.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Cowards. Yeah.
We're not. Goblins aren't cowards. Goblins are the mightiest, noblest. Okay, I can't say that.
Goblins are
Straight face.
tasty.
No one asked you. I do love a good goblin, though. They're good. Goblins are the greatest, and we'll get into that later. But hey, welcome. You're listening to Chef Bolgg and the Pirate Captain's recipes for everything. I am the Pirate Captain, along with me bestest buddies, Chef Bolgg,
Yeah, that
and
one.
Loke the Bard. Yeah, I know, right? And we've actually got a special guest. We're going to get to her. She's a returning guest. And you know what? I almost forgot what her name was, but we're going to let her reintroduce herself here in a bit. So we have... I just want to thank everybody who's been listening to us throughout this month. So you guys are a big reason this podcast has grown and that we've put so much time and effort into it. Make sure you guys check us out. You guys check us out on Facebook. We have the Chef Bolgg and Pirate Captain's Facebook page. And then you also have our email, bolgandpc@gmail.com. You can email us. We have other big projects coming in the works as this kind of picks up a little bit of speed, which in the last few episodes, we picked up quite a bit of speed. There was a big reach out when we did the shop episode when we were talking about D&D shops, and then our Artworks Racist episode actually did pretty well too. So, And this one I think is going to do. We got a few topics. We're getting back into the rules a little bit. I know last one was a little bit philosophical, but that's, these are questions that come up with the D&D world is, philosophicies. And with that, I do want to go ahead and introduce our special guest. Go ahead and say hi, special guest.
Hello.
Welcome back. Go ahead and tell everybody who you are.
I am Rivara, Rav for short, because shortening names to 3 letters works for me. So
Into the mic for me. So Rav's back. We had her in. It's actually one of our more popular episodes too from back in the day when she was actually one of our first after Loke the Bard. She was actually our first special guest after Loke. This is before we knew Loke was going to be like a mainstay with us, but So we're glad to have you here, Rav.
I'm like a fungus. I grow on you.
Yeah. We've been trying to get him off. We've tried burning him. We've tried killing him. We've tried drowning him. It just doesn't work.
That's the wrong way to get a bard off.
I got to get the bleach spray. Got it. So, but welcome into us, Rav. Big topics for today. Bolgg has come up with this one. He's a big fan, as you've heard us talk in the past, about the not Elden Ring, but the whole...
That's the new one.
That's the new one, right.
Oh my God, it's so good.
I know. We know
So
you.
good.
Yeah. We've talked about Dark Souls, and Bolgg's got a couple things he wants to talk about, the different D&D versions that come out with that. We have also, I want to see what you guys think about what characters can carry. We were talking a little bit off air before we came in on this, and I was like, yo, you really can't go around carrying 3 great weapons. I don't care who you are. I think that's a little ridiculous. And can curses be good or bad? I think that you can actually curse somebody and have a good curse, and that'll really mess with somebody. So it's a Loke.
About that last night. Trying to curse somebody.
I'm just saying that seems like a Loke thing where he'd actually give you a beneficial curse, and you're like, I don't know what to do with this.
I plead the 5th.
Exactly. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into that first topic. Like you want to talk about these different versions of D&D. There's multiple versions of D&D, and I'm not talking like Pathfinder or anything like that. I'm actually talking about, there's a Rick and Morty D&D. And I like Rick and Morty like the rest of us. I've got Rick and Morty tattoos up and down my right arm. But is there really a reason for a Rick and Morty D&D?
I mean, created by Dan Harmon, right? Not Dan Harmon.
I don't think it was done by Dan Harmon. I don't think it was Justin Roiland either.
All I know is that he's really interested in D&D, and for me, it made sense. You're planeshoppers. You're going around to different dimensions. Why wouldn't you do a D&D Rick and Morty?
Well, I mean, yeah, Dan Harmon's a big one. He actually had the series Harmon Quest, which actually I wish they would come out with a new season. It's a really clever series that they did. It's on VRV, and it's him playing pretty much all the guys from Community is what it was. He grabbed all his friends and writers from Community and started playing D&D with them, and it's great. And I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, you can buy it, but it just, I don't know. It looks just like D&D in that they slapped Rick and Morty on it instead of just like, I don't know, playing Rick and Morty.
Oh, that's actually pretty much what it is. But that again, that plays into their dimension hopping. It makes sense that they go to a D&D dimension. For fans of the game and fans of the show, it's just an interesting intersection. I mean, they did this with My Little Pony, for crying out loud.
Bronies will give you anything.
Yeah, and there are campaign settings and systems and add-ons that don't make sense in the traditional D&D. Like I know they came out with a UA not too long ago where for modern weapons and modern warfare to be done using the D&D system. Traditionally, that's not what DMD is made for. That's not what most people most people play it. But if that's what you're into and that's what excites you and gets you playing.
But this is, I don't know. We've talked plenty about it in the past about reskins, reskinnings of this, reskinnings of that. That's all I feel like this is just a reskin. Now, what's the difference? You were telling me about the Dark Souls version of it. What's the difference between Dark Souls D&D and regular D&D? Like this one, I'm just looking at it. Yeah, you're really just playing these same characters.
Yeah, it's D&D with Rick and Morty, but the Dark Souls one's actually made by Steamforged Games, and it uses the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition engine and then tweaks it just a little bit to fit more with Dark Souls. I mean, just looking at their Steamforged, I've already pre-ordered it. Of course I have. But
he's literally touching himself to this game right now.
I am not.
Yeah, it's just like any campaign setting where, there are certain classes and races that are going to be unique to this setting that are not available. And, Dragonborn may not make sense in a Dark World campaign.
But that's part of that Zero session where you just come out and you say, hey, look, do not, there's no Dragonborns. There's no magic in this campaign. Or something like that. Like versus... The difference between this Rick and Morty one and probably what the Dark Souls is because you have a whole crew of like outside sources that are doing this. I don't have you got a Rick and Morty screen protector. It's just it's not D&D. It's just skin stuff.
With with the Dungeons & Dragons Rick and Morty, you're playing Dungeons & Dragons with Rick and Morty. For the Dark Souls, you're playing Dark Souls with Dungeons & Dragons. So they've, unlike the Rick and Morty where they put Rick and Morty in Dungeons & Dragons, they've taken Dungeons & Dragons and morphed it to fit Dark Souls. So you're not playing a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, you're playing a Dark Souls campaign.
So what would make a player want to go grab that one, though? Like what's so special about the Dark Souls version other than maybe if you're a Dark Souls fan? Like if I'm not a Dark Souls fan, which I'm not, what makes your version better to do that?
Most of these are also meant more for the DMs out there than the players.
Yeah.
It gives you the tool. I mean, yes, a DM could go and create his own Dark Souls campaign. One of us in this room
which I have done, yeah.
And that's a lot of work.
I had to bend rules then. This actually gives me the tools to do this without having to, rack my brain how to make a Dark Souls campaign work using Dungeons & Dragons. Somebody's already done it for me. Yeah. And, I mean, you guys know I love homebrew. I love to work on it. But doing that campaign was week after week of torturing myself how to get strong enough monsters that you monsters could actually fight.
Yeah, and you know me, I don't use campaigns. I use my own custom homebrewed world campaigns. But I could pick up this book and, if I want to pull out the monsters out of this book or
You absolutely could.
I could. I've done that before. I'm a big fan of the Wheel of Time. I have the Wheel of Time campaign setting from, it was the Roll20 system from back when third edition was out. And I've pulled, the Trollocs and Fades out of that and used them as bad guys in my custom homebrewed world.
So
Just
in a
because I thought
way-
those monsters were cool.
In a way, it's just taking less time for you to world build and is giving you pre-designed monsters, races, settings. It's lessening the stress of being a DM.
Yeah, and somebody's already done the math.
Yeah.
Because how strong is a Trolloc? How strong is I can't think of a Dark Souls bad guy off the top.
How strong is an undead soldier?
Yeah.
I can guarantee you it's a lot stronger than a guard.
Yeah, and if you use regular rules D&D and throw a zombie in, a level, what a CR 1/4 zombie ain't gonna be a Dark Souls undead soldier.
You're gonna knock it down, and it's gonna be super easy. An undead soldier could kill you in 2 or 3 hits in the original Dark Souls. And that's something that a zombie's not gonna do to you.
Yeah.
Well, that's what like I said, I want to hear the argument of why I should buy something different versus kind of creating it on my own and saving myself the money, because these obviously they're coming out with, they got new books coming out all the time, and Wizards, that we talked about this during lunch, Wizards of the Coast just won our money. Good job, Wizards, you got us. But this one, and looking through it, this is actually like going back to the Rick and Morty version. It's actually more than just, oh, hey, we're reskinning Rick and Morty. I guess it follows their adventure that they did of a Rick and Morty, the comic book, where it's D&D versus Rick and Morty. So it's just, you know what it is? It's another campaign module.
Yeah.
So is that what your Dark Souls one is, or is it actually just like...
No, it is a full source book. Hold on, I can read you the what's in the book. Complete 5th edition rules enriched with signature Dark Souls mechanics designed for authentic campaigns, which... They do something instead of, because stamina is a huge part of Dark Souls, they use something called position, which your hit points are basically your stamina as well. You can use your hit points in order to, it's a trade-off system I thought was really interesting.
Right.
But I'll read more about it when it comes out, which will be, I think, in May. We'll see. But 10 bespoke new character classes for Dark Souls character creation, including new abilities, new backgrounds, and more. A brand new magic system. That has spells, pyromancies, and blessings. We'll get on that eventually.
Yeah.
A Game Master's chapter with tips and advice on running role-playing games that capture the spirit of Dark Souls. Full bestiary teaming with deadly Dark Souls creatures and bosses and mushroom people and Lords of Cinder. There's, from what I'm reading here, it's trying to deliver a Dark Souls experience using the 5e mechanics, whereas the Dungeons & Dragons versus Rick and Morty, it's kind of like an old box set skinned to be Rick and Morty.
It's like I said, like reading through, because I went to Books A Million and they gave a description of it. It's a series. It's done by the and it's co-authored by Jim Zub, the co-writer of the comic book series. But it just follows their adventure. It's just a campaign.
Yeah,
you're paying $30, which is the average price across all the sites, for a new campaign. Right. And honestly, the DM screen is about the only thing I like out of there.
But yeah, and that's the other thing. As a Rick and Morty fan, you like that DM screen. If you're DMing a lot and you just want a fun DM screen, this is the only way to get that DM screen. I mean, it is a business at the end of the day.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good for Rick and Morty. They get the licensing money. Good for Wizards of the Coast. They get the their book money. Yeah. I mean, that's how these products work.
I'm not against it either. Like, I don't want people to think I'm against it, but at the same time, you got to give me a good reason to buy these things.
It's a justification as to why I should drop $30 in order to get.
Well, here's the thing: is that Dungeons and Dragons didn't used to be part of the zeitgeist. It wasn't popular. Now you've got things like Rick and Morty,
Stranger Things.
You've got My Little Pony, who are crossing over with Dungeons and Dragons, getting people who are invested in those things interested in Dungeons and Dragons.
You youngins don't know the pain of the old days. When Dungeons and Dragons is referenced in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, the loser kid who's paralyzed and fights Freddy as a wizard gets his ass kicked immediately by Freddy, and he's like, "I don't believe in fairy tales, kid." Airheads in the 90s. Yeah. Adam Sandler and Brendan Fraser. When he confesses to not always being cool, the first person who joins him in confessing, his confession is, "I used to play D&D."
D&D's definitely become very popular over the years, and I guess it's kind of why things like this are coming out.
Yeah, it is a much different environment these days.
That's that mainstream, man. Like I said, damn you, Stranger Things.
Yeah, and they have a Stranger Things
I know.
module, yeah.
module where you can play in the Stranger Things world.
And that what that does is fans of Rick and Morty who love their dimension hopping adventures walk into a shop or walk into they say like Amazon, Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, Books A Million. Obviously, Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, but Amazon. If they go on Amazon and see Rick and Morty on the front page and it's Dungeons and Dragons, they're going to go, wait, they crossed over with that game. Let me see what this is about. And suddenly you have new players right there.
I'm a Dungeon Master, Morty.
Yeah.
I'm Dungeon Master Rick.
Yeah, and
Oh gosh, Rick.
how often does a new Dark Souls game come out? Every 3, 4, 5 years?
Sometimes longer.
So, yeah, sometimes longer. So now, these guys who love the Dark Souls world, love the Dark Souls setting and all that, and they've played all the games, they've beat all the games, they're tired, and they're looking for new fun in that world. For them to pick up the D&D version and go and continue new adventures.
I I said, I don't want people to like be listening and thinking that old pirate captain hates on doesn't want people to enjoy Rick and Morty or like have a D&D crossover. I think that's it, but like I don't know. I want to be able to justify why I'm spending $30 when all I want is like the $5 DM screen.
So what you would want more is a Rick and Morty source book using Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I want something like something
like the
that
Dark
explains.
Souls
Yeah, exactly like the Dark Souls that explains like the mechanics of my portal gun or something like that. Like
Yeah.
that's what I want. I want justification of why I would want to buy this outside that, like I said, the $5 DM screen.
Yeah, but now, the guys who's running a book adventure every Saturday that's a different, where he's not writing his own stuff, he's not creating his own stuff. That this is it's different. It's not going to be the same adventure that you had every other week.
Yeah.
It might be worth it for him to grab this $30 adventure.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
Fair enough.
And you could easily drop in Rick and Morty showing up in your D&D campaign because
that's
they're
exactly what I
dimension
need.
hoppers,
Yeah, look, I just need a cameo right here. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would not be surprised if there's a a character sheet for each of them with their stats and
I think there is. Like looking at this right here, I've got it up on the screen, and there's like probably a thief or an assassin, Morty. It looks like he's playing an orc.
Just off the top of my head, I mean, you could, in your regular, if you're playing like a Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness style campaign, they could be your big bads even. Just pull their stat blocks out of there.
You hear about this evil lich that's out in the outside of the town who's turning the town into zombies. You walk into his lair, and all of a sudden I'm Pickle Lich! Yeah.
No, I'm Lich Rick. I'm Lich
Yeah.
Rick.
But this feels like something definitely that you don't have the time to plan a campaign, or the group that you are playing with. Scheduling conflicts are a major issue with D&D. You don't have time to meet up every Saturday, and this is something that can pass the time, something you can come back to once or twice a month.
But that's any campaign though.
Yeah.
I don't need specifically this one to do that. That's the module books out there are plenty and abound for that. So,
but this is if you played the standard D&D, and some people if you play every weekend, multiple games a weekend, sometimes you get tired of the vanilla.
But that's
sword and sorcery, medieval time setting.
Okay, but that's on you and your friends. Like we've talked about that in the past.
This brings in a nice change of pace where it's something silly, not so serious. Whereas, I remember a certain pirate captain running a campaign where we were in the Christmas world, fighting the characters from the holiday specials, like Frosty the Snowman and Rudolph were like the bad guys.
With the greatest tango ever seen by two characters.
Yeah,
I remember that one. That was a good one, though. I like that one. It's like a one-off, but you got to come up with stuff.
And that's what this is. It's a one-off for people.
Yeah, I mean, just
who
looking at
just
this,
don't have the time or imagination to come up with their own.
Looking at the
really,
stuff that's
Mr.
with
Macho Man for every dwarf ever.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, just looking at the stuff that comes with it, these books are tiny. They're meant to be completed in an afternoon. It's not.
Yeah.
It is I don't have anything planned today. Oh, well, I have the Rick and Morty Dungeons and Dragons box set, so let's just run that.
Yeah. And
I think my biggest issue with it, and not to cut you off there, Loke, I think my biggest issue with it is $30 for all of that.
yeah, and that
too.
when you get a popular franchised licensing agreement, you're paying for the license. It's going to be more expensive than the third party, no name published adventure. Yes, it will be more expensive.
I see it.
And that's
But
why
it's also got the collectability. There are people out there who collect the Rick and Morty stuff who are probably buying this and never opening it.
Oh yeah,
there's-
definitely.
Yeah.
I'd mentioned my Wheel of Time one from back in the Roll20 system. I have never actually played that game. I owned it from the day it came out because I'm a huge fan of the system of the novels.
Right.
I had everything in hardcover form, and that came out as a new thing, so I bought it right away. I mean,
I don't know. Like I said, my biggest argument, I'm not telling people not to buy it, but I think, one, it's probably, it has to be something different. Especially if I'm going to be charged $30, it's got to be something like where it's a whole new rule set, like the Dark Souls one versus, it's just another campaign module. Because I don't even think, I don't know, some of the module books are expensive too.
Well, I'm actually with you. I'm not spending $30 on this. I'm not. I like Rick and Morty. I love Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not spending $30 on it.
No.
yeah, and
But-
I'm not a
wouldn't
Rick and
either.
Morty fan, so
But $60.
nothing against them. It's an entertaining show, but I don't have tattoos of them on my arm, so I'm not buying it either.
But $60 for a Dark Souls book that has entirely it works off of 5e, so it's a system we all know.
Right.
It's got tools for DMs to create your own campaign. It's not just a module. Yeah, I'm going to drop 60 on that.
Yeah, and the cover price of the DMG or the Player's Handbook, that's got right in that same price range. So
Right.
Which, just a quick shout out, if this interests you at all, the Dark Souls stuff, it's on Steamforged games. You can pre-order it now. Pre-orders come with a PDF, so you'll get it before the actual book gets to you. So you can start playing now instead of, well, not now, but when you get the PDF, instead of waiting for that hardcover to book. But the book is going to be really nice.
Yeah. All righty. Enough complaining about the prices of modules. I have something bigger to complain about. Why the fact can you carry 3 great weapons?
'Cause I'm strong.
That is bull.
yeah.
That is bull. Not Bolgg, bull.
Encumbrance rules are completely by weight, not
Yep.
Yeah.
logistics. And they're also one of those things that, you're on the honor system a lot of times that you're tracking your own because there's too many numbers already for the DM to be tracking. He's not going to track your encumbrance.
He's not going to check
No.
to see how much you're carrying on
Yeah.
your person.
That's crap. I think
I mean, you might throw the question mark up when he's like, okay, I drop my greatsword and pull up my great axe. Then there's how do you have those both?
Well, and that's what I want to get at. Like, why aren't we keeping better track of encumbrance? One of my favorite D&D games is an Xbox game that was out for Xbox One. D&D. Oh, what was the name of it? It's Dungeons and Dragons. Give me a second.
Adventures in Sword Coast?
I don't think so. Hold on. Let me pull it up. But
That one was
anyway,
Yeah, but with the video games, it's easier because you've got the computer calculating your encumbrance for
We're
you.
using pen and paper and
Just like, the whole Skyrim, as silly as
Just drop.
as silly as the Skyrim encumbrance system is, that it just slows down your walking speed, the computer does it automatically. It's not
Yeah.
something you have to think about and watch.
that's it right there. Heroes of Dungeons and Dragons Heroes. Great game. Absolutely, I recommend if you ever see it on Xbox or Xbox. Hopefully, it'll come out on Game Pass. It's worth playing because you can actually get all 4 of us can play on one thing. There's a couple cheats that you can do without actually putting in like cheat codes that you can like multiplicate certain items. But it was a great game. Me and my buddy beat it like back to back to back to back to back because once we figured it out, we figured it out. But when you can't carry something, it stops you. 100%. And I get it. You're right. You got a game that calculates all the math for you and does it.
Yeah.
But why can't we put a little bit more pressure onto players to do this?
Yeah.
Because there's no reason a wizard is carrying 40 pounds worth of stuff when they barely their strength is in the negatives.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And,
definitely.
those of us who've been in the military and have marched long distances with rucksacks on our back, even if it's not, ridiculously over your weight limit, after a 5-mile march.
Yeah, 15 pounds is going to feel a lot heavier than
that's-
15 pounds.
Yeah. And your strength modifier may say that you can carry 300 pounds of, equipment. But then if you're you guys are constantly traveling on foot for long distances,
Right.
to go from one dungeon to the other in full gear, averaging 20 miles a day or whatever. I don't know the exact daily walking speed.
We've all been in school. We know those backpacks.
Right.
What a bitch they are to carry around.
And that's what I'm saying is we will punish players with exhaustion if they do things outside of certain abilities will give you levels of exhaustion the more you use them. So why aren't we doing that with what we carry? Why aren't we, as especially as players? Like, I get it, we're already trying to skirt the system and stuff, and there's weights and everything. Yeah. And I understand, maybe not everything's going to have a massive weight. Like, am I really going to add, unless I'm carrying my quarterstaff, like it's in my pack versus like if I'm walking with it? There's a difference.
Yeah, and there's also things like if you're carrying a quarterstaff or a great sword, or and you're walking through doorways.
Yeah,
Yeah, I will say for those that use D&D Beyond, there is like when you're creating your character, you can click it to where it will tell you how much weight it is you're carrying with all your equipment, your backpack, everything. Yeah. But most of the time, people turn that off because why do we want to see how much we're carrying for 8 hours a day?
And like I said, most of the time in most campaigns. If you're a 3-person campaign, the DM may be a little more strict on it. But our typical game of 6 to 9 people,
that's
logistically too much for the it's completely got to be honor system of the players.
Like, why not do just like a random weight check? Like, why not come in and go, all right, everybody, tell me how much you're carrying. Like right now, like you got to stop. You got stop before the game even starts. I don't want you to stop mid game unless you get loot for some reason. But I'm just gonna be. We're playing. We're coming up on the session, and here I am, DM Pirate Captain, and I was like, I'm looking at Rob, I'm looking at Bolgg, and I'm looking at Luke, and I'm going, all right, guys, random weight check. I want you to weigh all the items in there, and let's make sure that you guys are not.
And Bolgg's Great Maul, Great Axe combo, 3 great weapon combo. I'm comes up because he doesn't wear any armor because he's a barbarian,
and I don't carry any survival stuff because I kill what I eat.
So
what I kill.
all his weight is in those 3 weapons. He's under the limit by the rules. He's good,
right?
Yeah.
But Loke the Bard, who's got all his survival equipment, his instruments, his potions, and maybe some extra his armor that he's wearing. You're gonna tell me that you don't.
And some of that even gets ridiculous because when I play, I tend to be a preparer. I'll have the salt and the chalk and the candles and the silver dust and all these little trick things that'll help in from experienced dungeoneering stuff for traps or specific monsters or specific weaknesses that your character in world would know about. Like carrying a hand mirror so you can look around a corner.
I used to do that all the time. It was one of my favorite things.
But you put all that in your bag, and it instantly appears in your hand every time you need it.
Right? No, that's that'll lead into another thing. Is like how long does it take you to get that stuff out? Like what's in your pockets versus what's in your pack?
Well, that's
and you can always find the potion with one action.
Yep.
Yeah.
6 seconds.
And to be fair, it kind of gets a little wonky when you have like a bag of holding. So at that point,
no. We give out bags of holding like it's nothing. Like we're pretty much bags of holding as it is.
And that's why I do it because that is my workaround. Is if it's starting to get to the point where what people are carrying is getting immersion breaking. Yeah. All of a sudden, they find a bag of holding, so I don't have to deal with it anymore.
Once that bag of holding is in your possession, everything goes into it. I don't care what it is.
But it looks like this. So I got this photo on we're looking at a screen right now, and I got this photo of a guy carrying just like an arms full of toilet paper. That's what it would look like, essentially, going through D&D. Yeah. Now, we're trying to immerse ourselves in some, I don't know, those toilet paper rolls look pretty heavy. That might be 2-ply. So all I'm saying is we put a little bit of try to be realistic as much as humanly possible, and I get that. But why are we not like trying to do better about making sure that we have characters? There's no way a wizard's carrying around not all wizards. There are wizards that have a strength modifier, a good strength modifier, or strength stat. But I'm just in general.
Well, and there are, like I said, it's on the players in most cases. There are some of us who, if I create a scrawny, weak wizard, I don't collect nothing. He's not carrying nothing just for that reason because it's part of the role playing in the story that he's so pathetically weak he can't carry this stuff.
Your encumbrance is taken up by your spell book anyway.
Yeah,
Your spell book is the one thing. You can carry. That's it.
In early levels, it's a spell scroll. Let's just be honest.
And then you make a summoner who can just make all the tools you need appear out of nothing, and then you're still good.
And that's fine. I
I was thinking about this. I was looking through D&D Reddit, and somebody was talking about that. I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Why don't we put a little bit more focus on some? Because I know people that'll harp about rules about, flying, or, how chromatic orb works, or something as simple as like that. Or remember when we used to have the bouncing flaming sphere? Mm-hmm. That was always a fun one. I love that one.
Yeah, and it's also, it's all who you're playing with, too. There is, the people who are fudging their rolls and cheating just to quote unquote win D&D are probably the same ones that you got to spot check to make sure they're not over their encumbrance, because they're trying to win D&D and they've got everything players like that are probably going to pencil in stuff and take stuff out as needed anyway, so you're not really accomplishing anything by cracking down on them.
In our first campaign, I know Hildir's really close to her encumbrance because she's carrying all those bottles of alcohol. She's got a couple of axes, some hand axes, heavy armor. I know she's near her encumbrance, but I make sure that she stays under it because while I optimize, I don't like to fudge the numbers because that's not the point of D&D. The point of D&D is to role play.
Yeah, and some things it's part of the contract, I guess. That one falls on the player. Encumbrance is one of those things. If it matters to you especially, it's on you to keep track of it.
Now,
the DM's got enough on his plate already.
And like I said, I get that, but I want to see. It was something that somebody had brought up, and I thought it was a great point because it also kind of leads into, and this may be into a giant different topic. Should you be taking your backpacks into dungeons, or should you be stowing them somewhere? Because you don't know, let's say somebody does die in that dungeon, and now you got to carry their stuff out because they may have all the stuff you need. How are they going to, now they got to carry 2 backpacks? How are they supposed to fight? How are we supposed to do all this?
This actually happened in our late game yesterday, kind of. One of the characters who we started a new campaign about 5 or 6 sessions ago, and he just wasn't happy with his player and with his character, and he, is early enough still that we could swap him out. So we rode in where that character left. Well, that character left. He had been the one that was carrying all the gold and silver from the previous.
Yep.
And nobody took it from him before he left because they didn't know in story. Of course, all the players knew he was switching.
But
nobody in character knew that he was going to decide to run away and never come back. And
how do you run? You're not supposed to run away from the circus. You're supposed to run away to join the circus.
Well, he saw Undead and was like, I'm not doing this.
I think it was also he had died too many times.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm out.
That character in the 5 sessions we had, I think, had been dropped to 0 5 times.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is so now, why it leads into this imposing of penalties, and I don't want to punish players. I absolutely don't. Players don't deserve to punish. We talked about that with James in here. There's an unwritten contract of DMs wanting you players to have fun, but we got to make it. Sometimes you got challenges, and that's a challenge. Is being able to oh man, what do I bring? Do I bring 4 candles or this little bit of gunpowder? How am I varying this? Do I have the barbarian that carries my stuff for me because I physically can't do it because I'm just more of a weaker character?
Oh, that was the other thing with Bolgg is that he did carry somebody's stuff because they couldn't carry it.
Yeah.
I think he carried most of the loot that we picked up in the dungeon because he had the spare. Of course, Bolgg was a little rule stretchy. I mean, the DM who ran that allowed me to go. I was far above 20 as I wanted to go. I think at the end he had a 30 strength, so he was ridiculously strong.
Right, and that's
strong,
and that's okay. But what kind of penalties are now you incurring because you can't obviously carry 2 great weapons and carry somebody else's stuff and carry your stuff.
Carry 3 great weapons, packs full of equipment, and I'm 8'11". I'm not fitting through a single doorway.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not going to happen.
We busted on him when he was a Centaur, and he couldn't climb a rope ladder. We all looked at him and was like, there's no way in hell you're climbing a rope ladder.
It's like the, is it okay to meet women? I'm screwing up the name of the anime.
How to pick up girls in dungeons.
Yeah. Yeah, the
one character
sidekicks
that
who
has
carry the giant backpack.
the giant backpack. There's no way you're fitting through a door with that thing.
That's just.
But that's the way almost every D&D character probably looks. who's any kind of prepared character, because and that a lot of it comes from the old days where you had to have your rope and your 10-foot poles. How many people in the old D&D editions, a 10-foot pole was a standard piece of equipment?
Yep.
A 10-foot freaking pole. Where are you carrying a 10-foot pole in your backpack?
You gotta have one of those backpacks right there.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, even with starting equipment, I actually get rid of some starting equipment that I just don't ever plan on using.
Yeah.
Well, that's an easy way to get gold in the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Do you let your players do that?
Yeah, absolutely. If they have stuff that they don't want to have, sell it. I give you book value. You can always try and get more than that by talking your way into it. Of course, if you fail, you might end up paying more,
or
not getting as much.
I'm a jerk. You don't sell for book value. You sell like half book value unless you talk.
You sell for the Loke value.
Yeah.
Well, at the beginning, book value, but later on, you're going to talk to a pawnbroker who's going to try and screw you out of everything he can.
Or
What you got,
have
Rob?
it start off with one of my characters for one of my games that I'm in. He was arrested before the campaign started, so he had nothing. Then again, he was also a monk, so it didn't quite matter. But it's like he showed up with nothing.
The old
on him.
Morrowind trope.
Yep.
We've done where you were survivors of a shipwreck. You weren't expecting it. All your gear you didn't have.
See, I'm fine with that one, but you can't. But nobody's allowed to cast the Goodberry spell.
Yeah. Well, if you don't have what is it? It's not mistletoe for.
Yeah, it's
Goodberry.
mistletoe.
Is it
I
mistletoe?
think it is mistletoe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't, that's the DM trick to get around the Goodberry.
Yeah, but
Is you make sure they don't have if they don't have their spell focus and they don't have the material component, they can't cast that spell.
Well, yeah, that was when they washed up. I used a sharp piece of coral to kill those sailors. Backstory: prostitute got raped on a
Yeah.
drain.
every two
Revenge.
backstories will be the
Revenge.
same
Yeah.
with him at least. But it's just me busting his balls too. But it's one of those things. There was the YouTuber. The spellbook guy, the D&D spellbook. He does the animated spellbook. That's it.
Yeah.
And he was telling the story about how the Goodberry can pretty much ruin a campaign because if you're out in a wintry area, you need mistletoe. Mistletoe is actually a winter plant. So and it actually I think it grows. In a lot of places more than just in cold areas.
Well, and 5e has made survival campaign like setting type stuff like that very difficult because if you have the Outlander background, you get the bonus where you can gather food and water for like 8 people.
Yeah, something like that. Or
without using a spell slot. All you have to do is expend. I don't remember. It's a time.
Or you're a ranger in your favorite terrain. You can forage to up to X amount of people.
Yeah.
So Goodberry definitely changes the game.
Yeah, so
when it comes
so
to
the
that sort of thing.
Goodberry and the Goodberry on top of that, you're now feeding 8 people or whatever. But so D&D has made it so it's very difficult to play those survival games. So you, as a DM at the 0 session, you're going to have to, work those out. You can't have this background. You can't have the favored terrain of frozen tundra. And nobody has mistletoe on them to start with,
Yeah.
I mean, who randomly just goes, you know what I got in my pockets right here? I got this candle, some gunpowder, bat guano, and some mistletoe.
The 4 essentials.
You never know what you're going to need bat guano for, but gunpowder, I can tell you, 1,000,001 uses for gunpowder.
Well, and some of the material components, I know we've talked about material components before, but some of them get kind of silly how hard they would be to find.
Like with your druid who has to hunt on a full moon for specific plants.
My druid is a level 15 druid. One of his 6th level spells to cast the druid grove spell, you need piece of mistletoe that's been gathered on a full moon with a golden sickle.
Yep.
What the hell is with mistletoe? Like,
yeah,
who in D&D is like running out?
I think what it is the writers of D&D don't know a lot about herbs and
No, because mistletoe is poisonous.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. I don't think they know a lot about herbs, so that's the one they've all heard of because it was Christmas stuff.
Druid Grove. It requires verbal, somatic, and material components, which is mistletoe, which the spell consumes, that was harvested with the golden sickle under the light of a full moon.
Yeah.
So you have to be like almost in the right place, right time, Right uniform for the military folk out there.
Yeah, so you not only have to be where mistletoe is growing, you have to harvest it with a golden sickle. In that campaign, my character is a murder hobo. He is literally a hobo.
I mean, most druids are.
Yeah, he is wearing cast off clothes and smells really bad, and I based the character kind of off the murder hobo from the book, Something Full Murder Hobo. That's where he was based off of. And for him to get that golden sickle, to be able to harvest the mistletoe, to get to be wherever he's able to cast this spell, he had to get help from the party to do it. And because
now you got to convince them.
Yeah, because he doesn't have the money for that kind of thing. And then after all that effort, I was able to find enough to cast the spell once. And then I have to wait another 30 days or 28 days or whatever it is for a moon cycle on that DM's world to try again on the next full moon.
We get one full moon every 30 years.
Yeah. And if that's the way the DM wants to run that campaign, that's his world. He can do that. It could be a full moon every day if
Yeah, I just want to see somebody being covered by having so much mistletoe now.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing. And my campaign world has multiple moons. So it's much easier to pull a spell like this because it doesn't say which moon has to be the full.
Yeah. Or what would be bad if you're in a campaign where there are no moons, or you're not on that material plane that has a moon, which.
Yeah. So
no.
Now this particular spell is not one of those that's the, make or break your character spells. It's not one you absolutely have to have. But that's all. This is also one of those spells where if you cast it every day for a year in the same place, it becomes permanent. Which the high level campaign characters heading towards retirement, he's going to need that 365 units of mistletoe harvested on the full moon in order to retire into his grove when the campaign's over. Yeah, he could always find it after, and he could always set up his grove after but
for the story element.
Yeah, the story element, he's got, when they're on their downtime, that's what his current goal would be right now, is to complete that grove so that when we hit that level 20 and are ready to retire that character and move on to the next one, it feels like I actually accomplished it instead of, just wrote about it afterwards,
I don't know. Sometimes writing off that stories are great.
Yeah.
Speaking of stories, how hard is it to juggle multiple campaigns? We have our multiple campaign expert over here. Not Bolgg. We got Rob. Rob's the real multiple campaign expert.
Yeah. So.
Backstory. You got to give backstory to how many campaigns you're
Okay, that's what I'm
playing.
actually doing right now. Give me a second to count in my head. 1, 2, 4, 2, because Saturday we have our 2 games. So I'm currently. Do I count ones I'm going to run?
Mm-hmm.
7. Currently.
What? No, I had to swallow my drink because I almost spit it back up. 7?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not all
Jesus.
of them are running at the same time.
Oh, clearly.
And not all of them are currently in progress. But yes, I'm currently in 7 campaigns.
So obviously it's, and that's the idea, is that we're getting ready to get into, is how do you jumble all these? Because, sometimes everybody will have that little bit of one character that bleeds into the next, it bleeds into the next, it bleeds into the next, I was joking about Bolgg, how every two backstories he tells are the same backstory. It's just a different era. That's all it is. Joke's on him. But, when you're playing different stories and stuff like that, how do you keep characters from running into each other?
Yeah. I will say, so minus the 2 that are in person and the 1 that I'm going to be running in person, we use Discord. So that is bonus servers that have our character stuff on different servers, whole 9 yards, lore, information. So that does help. If I was doing this in person, do not ask how. I would probably crumble under that pressure. But
you were telling me you have 4 notebooks.
I do have 4 notebooks. 4 notebooks. Each notebook is for a different character, so I can write down information, write stuff the DM gives me. I have all 4 of them in my backpack at home, and it's how I personally keep track of all of my stuff. And of course, with those campaigns as well, we use D&D Beyond, so it helps a little bit in the more with keeping track of all of it. And like, to be honest, I don't know how I keep all those characters in my head and not have them bleed into each other. And they're all very different, though. That's the thing. I try not to make characters that are the same. I want to explore those different aspects
Write this
of
down,
character
Bolgg.
sheets.
I'm just giving you crap.
But, and honestly, they're all completely different. So it really helps not having them fight.
That's one of my tips, I would say, as well, is, if you're doing multiple at the same time, you don't make them all barbarian,
Orc barbarians from a tribe that was killed,
who like to cook.
Getting very attacked right now.
Then it's going to be very difficult to separate.
Good thing about barbarian.
But
you're the
resistant to damage.
But
You're the only person that I know that's played the same character twice, and I think that's why we just kind of like beating
3 times now.
Yeah,
I played it for a one shot for her.
See,
Yeah.
Yeah, but like for example, the original Lock the Bard and a character I had in a Bolgg campaign, Toe Leafeater, who was actually another pirate character.
because pirates are cool.
Toe, if I were playing those 2 characters at the same time,
There's no way.
the rogue spellcaster and the bard.
They're
Kind of going to overlap.
they're going to bleed into
I mean,
each
yeah,
other.
there are certain character
Yeah.
types that you're going to have that run every caster. You're going to be like, well, what's different between a sorcerer and a wizard? Really, not a whole lot. Let's just be
exactly.
honest.
Yeah.
So if my advice, if you're playing in multiple campaigns at the same time, Mr. Whiskers, the dwarf cat artificer, playing at the same time as Toe Leafeater, the pirate. Probably easy to keep those 2 separated.
Yeah.
No.
It's like with mine, like the 2 that I mainly pop into my head are 2 very different characters. One being a monk, wood elf, I have a type, and the other one being a Dhampir fighter. They're 2 very different backstories, very different upcomings, and what they're going into are 2 very different things. So it helps when you have like that in your head and knowing that these 2 will never bleed over into each other.
Yeah. I try to have if I'm playing, because I play in the 2 campaigns, I play with the first campaign that I play in Lokes, I try not to have a marshal and a marshal or a spellcaster and a spellcaster. I try to do a marshal and a spellcaster, which is before your current campaign was on, I had Forpton, who was a warlock, but I was also playing Hilly, who is a fighter. And now that we've started the new campaign, I've got Florence, who's a bard.
So now, but here's the question, because we all know a certain person that hates spellcaster classes so much that somebody had to create an entire campaign to make him play spellcaster classes. But I want to play different multiple melee classes because I prefer the melee. Think about that, because now you're having that challenge. Now you've got to be able to keep the personalities of multiple people out there different, because one could be lawful good. He's out there and he's doing the right thing by the world. He's the debonair rogue that's taking on pirate ships. Or it could be, chaotic evil, and he's out there fighting for whatever religion he likes, like some kind of paladin that prefers pacifism. Just try to keep these guys separated.
Yeah, and that's where you do other things with the backstory. Just because they both can use a sword doesn't mean they have to. Make one
Not
use a
at
sword,
all.
one use an axe. That way you're keeping them separate in your head where they're not going to overlap too easily.
But how do you keep their personalities? I think is the thing that I really want to touch on is how do you keep the personalities?
Well,
7 campaigns, she's DMing 3 of them?
I'm going to be DMing 2.
2 of them. All right, so 2 of them. So 5 campaigns, 5 separate characters.
Yeah.
That you have to keep those personalities. You're almost like splitting your personality. It sounds like a TikTok trend.
It does.
Well,
I have no advice for that kind of thing. For me, I build that personality based on their backstory. I figure out how they're going to act and how they're going to be, but I don't know how to give advice on how to do that because it's something that is very difficult, and it's hard not to have those personalities bleed into it.
And your own personality is going to always
Yeah,
bleed
my
in as
personality is
well.
always going to be ingrained a little bit
Every
into those
character
characters.
will always have something of you.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
It's regardless. Like even the best actors, you see. Think about how many different characters Robert Downey Jr.'s played, and if you actually go back and watch him in some of his earlier movies, he's still the same guy even before he was Iron Man. Like he played that kind of like suave, debonair guy. Well, the first movie I can think of seeing him in is U.S. Marshals, and he was the bad guy there, but he still had that kind of like about him. So that's what I'm saying. Every character is always going to have a piece of you.
Yeah.
But how do we?
So when you build that backstory, the rogue, you give him some kind of the tragic Batman style, dark, broody, dead parents.
My
kind of
parents were
backstory.
killed, and now I'm out for revenge.
Yeah, and then for the shiny holier than thou paladin, you give him the
Parents?
you give him, he was raised in the church.
I like how we went like
his
180 with each other.
his parents were priests and raised him to be the good old boy and make him the all shucks super clean cut boy from Kansas. And then if you're playing in a third campaign, well, maybe you're playing a woman character who came from an isolated island.
Well, Zack Snyder, let me tell you.
And like I say, Zack Snyder had 4 distinct characters.
Yeah. It's
Every day you make me want to shut off your mic.
That's what I'm here for.
The character sheet has a tool that not a lot of people utilize, is those little personality blocks. Those
I think
I fill them out with not necessarily with what's in the book, but with what I have, just to keep notes on keeping people straight. Because
if I remember right, and somebody can quote me on this and tell me I was wrong, but I don't think it actually tells you have to use those background
No.
traits.
No, those are
suggestions based on. Some of them are based on alignment. Some of them are based.
They give
on,
you they give you a die rolled. So if you're trying to completely random, but I like filling those out too. Usually I don't because it's in my backstory. I know, hey, I am the pirate captain. I am a guy that was mutinied on my own boat, left to die, gained a drug addiction. Now I'm a drunk. Saw somebody that needed my help and made me think, how can I use this to myself? So on and so forth. That's what are my convictions? What are my personality traits? What are my
Actually, I just pulled up on my. I have my character sheets all on my phone. For my murder hobo, for the ideal section here, I have that he wants to be civilized but doesn't understand what that is, because he's a hobo that was raised by wolves. Basically, he is that's
somebody
part
get
of
the
his
spray bottle? He's humping his leg again.
Yeah, and then for the bond section, I've got on here that it's a loyalty to the pack. That he sees the team that we've developed, the party, as his pack, so he's loyal to them. But as he doesn't get the morals and behaviors of regular society, so those bonds don't hold for him. His bond holds. He takes care of his friends, his family, his team. And then for like the flaws, I put in here that common is not his first language,
Right.
and so he says things kind of weird sometimes. Like one of the big things from his backstory was there was a monster he called Civilization that killed his family. And all his stuff, he was like, I'm going to destroy civilization. Well, people take that as, he's a monster threatening to destroy civilization, not understanding that is, he is literally referring to a monster that he believes the name of that monster is civilization, not understanding that in common that is the same word, for, communities
people.
and that kind of stuff. And that's a big part of who he is and his personality. And just having those little notes on here, when I start playing, we play next week. Actually, next week that game is the DM had to take a week off from that game, so it'd be 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from now, when we play that game again, I read those traits and, oh yeah, this is what that character's like.
Yeah.
It's right there on the character sheet. I remember that stuff. So
I will say something I've helped and like developed with, because I know when you're building your character, you can always like Google like questions on how like stuff to implement in your character's backstory. I've taken those things and I've done a tag basically called warm-up questions, where you'll generate one of those questions and answer it as your character, which has significantly helped me in figuring out people's like backstories, what they're trying to do, who this person is. And it ranges from the silliest thing of like, could they take care of a houseplant, all the way up to what is their personal hell like.
Yeah,
and that helps so much.
This is my personal hell.
I've played with DMs who don't want an actual backstory from you.
Why?
But what they want is they give you, it's a writing exercise form that is like questions like that they're asking you about your character. Who is the most important person in your character's life? What is your character's goals? What are their ambitions? And it'll be just a questionnaire of these things. And, so your backstory comes out while you're playing. Yeah, obviously you still want to create your own backstory, but he doesn't want to know what it is. He needs those key points to develop the campaign to hit. But, as your character develops across the length of the campaign, then you can spill out your backstory to the other people. And that also lets you, I made this dark, broody, awful, evil person, and we're in a goody two-shoes campaign. Maybe I should lighten him up a little bit.
Never mind. No, I want to be the dark and brooding.
Yeah.
It's Lego Batman when he went to the toy world during the Lego movies. I love Will Arnett.
And we've had that in I remember one of our first campaigns, the monk character that was with us, who hasn't been on the show yet, his character for that campaign was just not a personality fit with the rest of the party's kind of more murder hobo style of play. And so he left the party and came in with an assassin instead that fit much more with that particular party's
I'm going to murder
mindset.
People with smiles.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean,
it's a character idea, right?
Sometimes if you had started the campaign and you need to make those little tweaks, it's easier when it's not been so ingratiated. Like if I had based our entire campaign off of the character who left last night, because like I said, that character wasn't happy with how that character developed. Coincidentally, it's the same person, but that's another story. But if I had based the entire campaign on his backstory, as a DM, I'd be up against a wall right now. Fortunately, I didn't do that. But.
Well, even like my character, I thought about changing her from a bard to a monk because I enjoyed the personality, but the mechanics weren't working for what the group needed. And her personality, she's very kind of aloof about anything other than what she cares about, which is her sister and her act, and actually Rob's character, because she likes the tarot. But I just felt like it wasn't meshing with being a bard, other than being in the show, because she just kind of goes with the flow. Doesn't really. She's what I think lawful neutral, so she's not got any particular one way or another. So I thought maybe a monk that would fit a little bit better. But it's so much work to change a character over.
It really is a lot. And I think one of the things that helps when developing personalities in particular is actually starting to play the character.
Yeah.
Bouncing off other people's personalities and seeing how their characters interact, it helps develop and solidify your own characters.
Well, D&D is a social game. It's meant to be like it really is. You can't play by yourself. It'd be a little weird. I mean, we all know somebody that probably could, but it's a social game where you're meant to help out and work with parties to overcome obstacles, and that's the idea behind it. So being able to, if you're a good character and you're constantly fighting your foil, Nigglewort, it's just one of those deals. So, well, it's been a good episode. I think we're almost done. We got a few more minutes left. I want to kind of throw out to, again, you guys out there, our Facebook page. Make sure you guys go out there and give it a like. To talk with us, talk to you. We always we'll respond to you guys.
It's Chef Bolgg and PC on Facebook. If you email us, it's Bolgg and PC. Say again?
Curses?
Oh, I know we were going to get into curses, but that's we can save that for another day.
Yeah.
But we do have that. Also, I just kind of want to throw this out there. If you got the first 5 people to email us, we got these new stickers. I will personally write you a letter thanking you for emailing us. But if you send us your address, we'll send you out some stickers. We got some stickers made that have our QR code, so you can share with your friends. You can put up somewhere in like a Super Bowl commercial and crash a website for all we care. But I want to throw that out there. But anyway.
Oh, yeah, and keep your eyes on the Facebook page because the chef is cooking up some tasty recipes to be thrown on there every once in a while. I've got one in my head right now that I'm going to work on when I get home, and maybe post up there before the episode shows up.
Well, with that being said, it's been a wonderful adventure with all of my bestest friends. I want to thank Loke and obviously Chef Bolgg himself, but more importantly, thank you, Ra, for coming in and hanging out with us today.
Of course.
Awesome. I appreciate it, guys. Make sure you guys hang out with us again in the future. As always, say goodbye, Bolgg.
Goodbye, Bolgg.
Say goodbye, Loke.
See ya.
Bye.
Hello?
We appreciate you listening to Chef Bolgg and the Pirate Captain's recipes for everything, featuring Loke the Bard, of course. Make sure you go find us on Facebook to see what old concoctions Bolgg is cooking up in the kitchen. And if you want your emails read, then email us at bolgandpc@gmail.com. And as always, happy adventures. Yarr.